Well, hi everybody. Welcome to today's presentation on Ideate BIMLink, the beyond traditional data editing tasks, project health checks, and general QA/QC tasks. My name is Sash Kazminejad, and I'll be the one presenting today's topics. Just a little information about me for those of you that have not met me before. I'm located in Portland, Oregon. My background is in architecture, California licensed architect with over 7 years experience with Ideate Incorporated. Why are we here today? Well, we're here to help you simplify your Revit data challenges. As you are all aware, we have 5 products that help people with their day-to-day Revit tasks. We're really all about the data editing and data management, and we want to help you accomplish those goals by simplifying the entire data editing and data management processes. All right, a couple things here real quickly. We have a lot of great information on our website, including the webinars that we record, a lot of educational videos on each one of our products and particular workflows. So be sure to utilize those. We also have great technical support. So if you have questions for us, don't be shy. Reach out to us. We're here to help you out. We also have a lot of getting started guides for all of our products. So again, if you go to the help menus and want to get started, be sure to take a look at that information. So again, we have a lot of content to help you get started. We want to make your lives as easy as possible. Okay, a couple things here. So we want to talk a little bit and actually go beyond our normal data editing tasks. So for those of you that are on the call today or on this webinar today that use BIMLink, my assumption is that most of you are using BIMLink to do a lot of data editing, right? So we take the information for the Revit model, we push it out to Excel, we do some editing in there, maybe we create some new elements, and then we bring that information in to update our model. A couple things I want to point out to you is, for example, in BIMLink, we have our library of information here, and we've kind of broken up by discipline and also by workflows. And I encourage you to take a look at each one of those folders to see some of the pre-configured links that are in there. I always encourage people to start with the pre-configured link definitions. These have all the parameter data mapped and ready to go, and you can add or remove parameters as you see fit. You can also save those link definitions out to your server, and you can even customize BIMLink in a way that you can basically organize a structure how you want to see it, or if you want to create one, or I should say structures that are particular to how your office does its workflows, you can absolutely do that. And again, you can push those settings out to everybody so when they launch their BIMLinks, everybody has kind of the same folder structure. But again, start with those pre-configured links. They will really help you get started. The other thing, and the reason why we're here today, is we really want to talk about the QA/QC tasks that are really related to overall model health reviews and also standards. And so we want to show you some of the information that's in there and how you can utilize that to your advantage. The first folder that I want to talk about here is just kind of a health check folder. And this one has some general health check information in there, related to dimensions or grids. We also have this one called Ideate Automation in there, or just Ideate, I should say, for that matter, levels and so forth. And so I'm going to review some of these when we get into a live demonstration. But just as an example, like the dimensions one will help you review maybe dimensions that have been overridden. Or grids, for example, will allow you to review the angle of the grid line. So if there's any discrepancies between your model and a linked model, then you can actually have a look at that and bring that to your attention. Because there's a lot of things that you can hide in the Revit model or that are not really visible to you. But from a data perspective, it's very clear what may be correct and what may not be correct. The other folder here is your project standards. So this allows you to review things like detail naming, how your family naming is set up, some of your view type data as well. So looking at your view type settings and making sure the view templates are properly associated to each view type and so forth. So these are great, again, to use in your templates, in your projects, and in some cases in your families as well. And then finally, we have the quality control folder. So while there may be a little bit of overlap between this folder and a couple of the health check items, this one really allows you to do your QA/QC. So again, checking some dimensions to make sure they're not overridden. Or for architects out there looking for, doors that are in hosted walls and checking to see if any of the fire rating information matches up. We'll list all the doors and their fire ratings and the walls that those doors reside in. These are great QA, QC reviews. And a lot of times they're not even necessarily interested in editing that data. It's just, hey, I want to take this information out and review it in Excel. Also, other great information, like for example, is in place, looking at the in-place family usage within your projects, or flipped elements. And the example that I always like to talk about with flipped elements are, let's say, on the mechanical engineering side, where we've specified a particular boiler, and let's just say that boiler has some inputs on the left hand and some outputs on the right hand side, but somebody brings in the Revit model and flips it or mirrors it, and it's designed to have right-handed inputs and left-handed outputs. Yet it's specified as it's laid out on the manufacturer's website. That could be problematic for you. And so we can really start taking a look at our model from a data perspective and not just take data in and out and update the model. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just have a look at a simple Revit project here and just some of the tasks that we can accomplish using BIMLink. So I'll switch over to this project that I have over here. And this one is a architectural model with a structural file link. And the reason why I have a link in here is because I also want to see how my consultants are doing with their Revit models. And so I'll go ahead and launch BIMLink here. And I'll just make this a little larger so it's easier to see. As a reminder, this screen over here is fully customizable. So if you want to put links to content, on your server or on your intranet, you want to create your own help videos and so forth, be sure to take a look at the information that we have displayed right here. We show you how to customize this page. It's pretty nifty. I'll come back to this information here shortly. What I want to do is go to New. And as I mentioned before, what I'm interested in focusing on for today's presentation are the health check, project standards, and the quality control folders. And if you want to get a look at kind of all of the links that we've created that ship with BIMLink, what I always encourage people to do is start at the top folder over here and then include the link files and in the subfolders. And if you really scroll down over here, this just gives you a fraction of information in terms of what BIMLink is capable of accomplishing. For example, creation of new elements. A lot of people, may use BIMLink to create some new sheets, but you can also create new levels if you want to, or create new viewports or unplaced views. You have the ability to do all of that. We also have a lot of information related to COBE. And as I mentioned before, our health check information and our quality control information also shows up in here. When you start going to the discipline-specific folders, this is where we start breaking up the content on a per discipline basis. So for example, here's just the overall MEP, and then we can get to electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. But to start with, I want to look at the health check folder. And in this health check folder, we have put some pre-configured links. And feel free to add your own links to this folder, as I mentioned before, or you can create your own folder structure if you want to, so that that way you preserve what we've done and you can just add to it. So for example, this health check dimensions, just the example here, this allows you to audit your dimensions for overrides. And I think it is important to point out, due to Revit API limitations, we can get that information for single segment dimensions. If you have a multi-string dimension and you do overrides in there, we can't pick up on that just because it's a Revit API issue. But if you do have single dimensions that are overridden, we can pick up on those. And so that stuff's really, really important. Okay, let's see. Let's have a look over here. Also, grids. This is an important one. I'm going to review this one first here. This one allows you to review the grid angles and naming across linked files as part of the health check. So let's take a look over here. So I'm going to go to Next. And here's what I want to show you right here. When I expand this over here, I have 89 grid elements. And if I show the full preview, what we could see here are the different grid numbers, right? And so the linked file name information shows up over here, and that's because I'm including the linked elements. And if I want to, I could certainly change the sorting of this. Right now, we're sorting it by the angle, but if I wanted the name of the grid so I can kind of take a look at 1.1 and 1.1 kind of side by side, I can certainly move the sorting up so that I can have a look at that. And so when I take a look at this from here, I see that everything looks really good over here. However, when I look at grid 3, and I'll just kind of zoom in on it for you, I can see that I do have a slight discrepancy over there. It happens to be that the grid in my model, which has the hashes over here, is at 0.01 degrees. However, I can see over here that the one in the linked file is 0. My assumption is that I actually have a problem with my grid. And so that will go on my list of things to have a look at. Now, if I want to just kind of pump all this information out to Excel and have a look at it from that standpoint, all I'm going to do here is hit done. And then I'll export this information out, and I can save it just directly in here. And I'll go ahead and do that real quickly, and I'll open the file just so you can see what can be done over here. Now over here, if I need to change my grid numbers, I can certainly do that. I can also change the scope box assignment if I want to. That's totally up to you. We give the ability to do that just above and beyond kind of the standard health check. Since it's in white, that means it's editable. If it's in gray, it's read-only, or we don't have access to change that information. It just depends on how Revit is set up to handle that kind of behavior. So I'm going to close this out for now, because the other thing I want to show you here is I'm going to come back to this file over here. And we actually ship this with BIMLink. So if you go into the C program files, Ideate, and you go to the BIMLink folder and our sample folders, we actually ship BIMLink with this health check Excel file. I'm going to open this Excel file here for a moment. And I want you to be thinking about, how can I use the Revit model data that I have access to? And what we've done with this particular example here is we've done a series of pivot tables that take the raw Revit model data and kind of summarize that information. So for example, we can give you kind of an overall health assessment over here. And we can give you a view summary and get view templates by view. We can get work set information and phasing and so forth. We can also get in place information as well. And we can give you a report on that. And really all we're doing is we're just taking the raw data. So for example, let me just come over here to grids just as an example. We're just taking the raw data from your Revit models, and we are just literally just summarizing that information in these pivot tables. So you could be thinking about how you want to utilize that data. Do you want to create a master file like this and have summaries in pivot table form? Or do you want to create a macro that kind of takes that data and summarizes it how you want to? Or do you want to take this information and use a program like Power BI to summarize it? So be thinking about just taking BIMLink or using BIMLink as a vehicle for gathering the information. Forget even editing it at this point. I mean, you certainly can, but more of just gathering that data. I'm going to close this out. And so, for example, if I were to come back over here and let's say take this grids over here and export it, I can actually export it into this existing file. And when you select it, it won't overwrite the file. It'll just say, hey, I found a tab inside of there or a worksheet called grids. Do you want to overwrite it? And when you overwrite it, what's going to end up happening is it will then input that new information in that Excel file. And then your pivot table data, if it's referencing that information, will then be updated. So again, you can be thinking about how you want to use that. All right, let's take a look at some other bits of information. I did make a grids custom, and I took our standard one and I added parameters like is pinned. That allows me to also pin my grids if I want to. So I could take it out to Excel, pin them all, bring it in, and it'll pin the grids, or I could just leave it as is. Also here, I can look at work set. If I want to audit my grids and see what work set they're on, I can absolutely do that as well. So be thinking about that once again. Okay, let's have a look at some other information here. I want to take a look at levels, because this is a good one here. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull up my custom one here. However, when I go to new, if I go to health check, here's our level survey. And HC stands for health check here, by the way. So let's just take a quick look at what this one is designed to do. And this is the out-of-the-box health check link. So this one, once again, will show you your linked information and also your current file. So the linked one here is the one that actually has a link file name, and then the hash over here is my current project. That's also evidenced by the fact that this is all grayed out across the board, where this is not grayed out fully across the board. But what I'm also looking for here are any sort of discrepancies. And once again, I see a naming discrepancy between my structural engineer and myself, but I also see a slight issue right over here. And it's pretty slight, but again, it's big enough to really, really create problems for you. And so what I can do here is I can go take a look at a building section, maybe just as an example. So let me just come over to a floor plan, and I'm just going to pick a building section and have a look at the building section to see if I can actually see that issue. And here's actually a great example of where BIMLink shines. So if you look over here, I see I have my first floor level in my project. It's showing 100, and then I have the level from the structural engineer, which is this one over here. And again, if I come back over here and I go to the health check and I go to my levels, and let me just go back over here just to show you that number again, it's showing 100.002. It's just barely off. Somebody may have nudged the level on accident, right? But again, it's only showing 100 over here, and that happens to be because of the amount of zeros or digits we want to see after the primary number. And so if I zoom in really closely, maybe I can get lucky. Maybe I can get lucky and actually see that discrepancy. And it may be really hard to see on your screen, but I do see a difference in the level elevation. So once again, the data rules where sometimes our eyes cannot help us with that information. Okay, I'm going to come over to the next folder over here, and let's have a look at the project standards. And so again, this really will help you ensure that your project is up to your company standards. That's a really big deal, right? People all the time, no matter what kind of standards you put in place, people make mistakes, or people are in a rush or on a deadline, and they start bringing in erroneous data from other projects or from these other third-party websites that make content. And so we want to make sure that we're really up to snuff and making sure that our projects meet our standards. Let's have a look here real quickly at project standards view types, just as an example. And you'll note over here that I have a little warning triangle over here, and that's because it already exists in my main definitions over here. And this one allows me here to edit the view type data. So again, maybe you have a client that requires your view types to be named a certain way, or maybe you have multiple models that are broken up and they need to have the same view types. And so let me just come over here and take a look at this particular one over here. And so in this example, I have 38 view types. And again, I can include linked elements if I want to, just to kind of take a look at how my consultants have been naming their view types, or if I have other architectural files or interior files, and I want to make sure those all coincide with each other as well. But here's a good example from a quality control perspective where I wanted to say, hey, you know what? I noticed that none of my view types over here have any view templates assigned to them. And I noticed that, I have a documentation set of plans over here, but I don't see that for, let's say, my elevations. Okay, no problem. So this is a good time for me to maybe export this information and take it out. And I'll go ahead and open the file. And now that I have this open, and maybe what I should probably come back here real quickly and show you one thing about this. One of the other things I want to point out to you is that, I get a list of all my view templates in my project, and you can actually change it right here in BIMLink. So if you haven't done that before, if you have a few that you want to just easily change, you can actually just do it right here in BIMLink. And when you hit OK, it commits the changes. But if you want to do a lot of changes, it may just be easier just to take it out to Excel. One of the things that I want to point out to you, if I come back to this Excel file here real quickly, you'll notice after column J, you'll see K and L, and you'll actually see a couple more. And these happen to be drop-down lists. And what that does is it grabs the information like the section tag info and the view templates, and it makes a list out of them. And the beautiful thing about this is that when I come over here, I get a drop-down list of all my view templates. So I don't have to guess on the naming conventions. I can actually just pick them from here. If you type it in manually and you get it wrong when you import it, it's going to error on import. And how do we get this list to be created? Well, in BIMLink, if it's not already selected, if you go to the link tab, there's a setting right here that says export with drop-down values. And when you do that, it will create drop-down values for various categories like view templates or section tag. And there are some categories that we can't get drop-down values for, but for the most part, we can. So that's where this information came from. So now what I can do is I can come back over here, and I'm just going to pick one category of floor plans here. And since there's no view template applied to new views, I'll just go ahead and pick, documentation floor plan. And then for my working floor plans, I'll go ahead and pick my working floor plans. And you get the idea over here, right? So I'm just basically assigning these because as part of my quality control, as part of my project standards, I noticed that these weren't set, okay? So I'll just go ahead and do that. Furthermore, I noticed that, for example, for my elevations, I have my interior and exterior ones that are all categorized, but I noticed that this existing building elevation, which literally is just that building elevation of project, it doesn't have a proper naming convention. So what I'll just go ahead and do here is I'll just go ahead and change this to 0 underscore documentation building elevations. So, or just documentation elevations for that matter. Okay, so while I'm here, I can also rename my view types if appropriate. All right, I'll go ahead and save that, and I'll close this out. And then I'll go ahead and import those changes. So right here's the project standard view types. No errors and warnings. And if I expand this dialog box over here, you could see this is where I've renamed. And then down over here is where I have actually assigned the view templates. And you can get a confirmation list down here. I'll import those changes. And what did I actually do? Well, if I come over here, you can see my view type assignment, right? And then if I go to edit type, what I did is I assigned it to the view template portion. So when I do create new views using this view type, they will automatically be assigned to those view templates. So again, a nice way to coincide your project standards. And same thing with elevations. You can see over here now, it used to be called exterior elevations. It's now called document elevations. And same thing, if I come over here, if I had applied a view template, which I didn't in this case, it would have shown up over here. Okay, and then let's do another one here real quickly. I want to show you another example of how we can do some quality control stuff. So I'm going to come over to New, and I'm going to come to the quality control folder. And again, let's just have a look at what's in here. Again, are we looking for, let's say elements that have a split face? So this is a big deal, right? You're in a Revit model, you have somebody splitting a bunch of faces, maybe because they're applying paint or they're doing something else, and we want to have an audit because sometimes when you make those changes to walls or floors, you end up getting a lot of warnings from Revit that it's deleting the splitting element. I'm not a huge fan of split faces just for that reason. But if you want to get a look over here, you probably noticed that it showed, look at that, 35,000 elements, right? So what we're actually doing over here is we're culling through the entire model, and we're looking at only floors, ceilings, roofs, and walls. And furthermore, what we're doing in this particular example is we're filtering out by a parameter that we've created called has split face. Okay, and so because if I did not have this in here, we're going to get a huge list of elements for just these categories, and then I have to go look for each ones that have checks that have split face. But what I could do is I could actually, right click on this if I wanted to and show element, which you can do that in BIMLink, and we'll take you to a view and show you the element. Or again, I can export this out into that little template that I have and have a look at it later on and say, okay, we need to go look at these and understand why they have split faces. So again, we've built these workflows to help you get started. I'll come back here again. Other ones as well, we talked about, is flipped, right? We're looking at elements that have been flipped or mirrored. This is a big, big, big deal, right? And so once again, we can come in over here and take a look at all of our categories. There's 653 elements, and we've done some filtering over here, right? But we can come over here and show you the elements that have their facings flipped or their handings flipped where applicable. So once again, we can actually, have a look at that and audit our model from that perspective. But the one I wanted to show you here is the dimensions one. So let's just go ahead and have the dimensions. Audit dimensions for overrides. Let's take a look at what we've done over in this particular link. So when I expand this one over here, you could see that it's picked up 4 dimension styles that have been overridden. And once again, if I go to a filter over here, we're filtering out all of your dimensions based on where there is a value override that has been set. And you could see some of the silliness over here. This one in particular, and we've all done this before, where you actually put a period before somewhere in between to make it look like it's been hasn't been overridden, but then you can get to these evil ones over here. I'm not going to get into how that happens. For those of you that know how to do that, you know how to do that. I don't want to spread bad information around, but there are dimensions here that have actually been overridden. And also, one of the things I could do here is I'm going to just come back and customize this just a little bit. I'm going to look at who created the dimension. So I'll just come over here and add that over here. And then I'll also look at who last updated it. That way I can go and at least have a chat with these folks. And it looks like I'm going to have a talk with myself because I'm the one that created and updated them at some point in time. So this really helps. Again, what I could do here if I wanted to, let's just take a quick look. I'll just maybe pick this one over here and right click and show element. And we'll do our best to find a view. And it happens to be the famous ADA accessible toilet, right? And so that one there shows 1 foot 6 inch. Now I can leave it as it is, export it out to Excel, edit it there if I want to bring it back in and clear the override. But just for this example over here, I'm just going to remove that. Okay. And then when I hit done, what it does is it actually just removes the override. And so in this case, this is actually at 1 foot 6 1/4. And so I will need to come in here and actually fix the way this is dimensioned. You can see there's a lot of problems over here, but it's a nice way to audit your models for overridden dimensions. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the PowerPoint and then I'll take some questions over here. One of the things I want to point out to you, you may have noticed that when I had exported out a couple of those links, I had exported them out either as individual Excel files, or I could export them out to that Excel file that I showed you that had those various tabs in there, those health check ones, right? And the process would be to kind of go through each and every one of those links and export them out individually to that one file. And that could take a little bit of time. And again, there are definitely times where you want to export out individual links on their own and do some editing and so forth. But what if you want to do this on a more automated schedule and have BIMLink do that for you so that you don't have to keep doing these tasks? Maybe you want to do run a health check in the evening, right? Or at midnight or something. Well, maybe you could look at Ideate automation for this. And so the whole idea behind this is that we can actually automate the task and say, I want you to take these links and export them out to here, starting at midnight using the Windows scheduler if you want to. And here's a list of files I want you to do it to. And a good example is this DIR. For those of you that actually used this DIR before, this is kind of a multi-step process where you're gathering the revision information and then the revision on sheet information that goes out to an Excel file that is macro enabled, and it generates this list of sheets that show you each of the revisions on the sheet. Well, maybe I can automate that task. Here's that example I showed you. What if I want to take all of these links right here and dump them out to a one file every night at midnight for a particular set of files? That way, when I come in, I can use my pivot tables to summarize them, or I can use Power BI to get that summary. What if I could do that? Well, you can. Here's just a quick screenshot of us having a particular task that's designed to do something that can then be scheduled to run, or you just hit the run button right here and it will start doing that. And one of the other things I want to point out to you is the time savings by using automation versus just manually doing it is huge. We've actually recorded a video just kind of comparing the two, and it's a matter of many, many, many minutes. If you are interested in automation, be sure to let us know. So at the end of the survey, when you fill out the survey, let us know that you'd like to know more information about automation, and we will get back to you on that. All right. Richard, real quickly, do we have some questions that we can answer out loud?
Yes, there were quite a few questions.
Okay.
And I thought this one was good in that, some people were mentioning that they were able to see the project standards link folder and the quality control link folder, but they weren't able to see the health check. And the reason is that the health check folder and the health check Excel file was an update that we did for our May 2020 release. Correct. So if you're not seeing the health check, it means that you don't have the latest release of Ideate BIMLink. And that is available for 2018 through 2021. There were some people that were asking about that as well. So all 4 versions will have the ability to have that health check folder and the Excel file in the and I actually put that in the link or in the question answer for everyone where that's located on the file folder.
Awesome. Thanks for doing that.
And then another quick question I thought would be good is just that when you were doing the initial grids and you had the different Revit linked files, someone had asked a question about, well, how do you know which grid is from which file? So I was mentioning that you could set up a filter and you could filter and sort. And I wasn't sure if you really, I know you explained that with some of the other grid or other link definitions, but I thought, well, if you had all those grids, you could filter them based on the RVT link, since you do have multiple link files. Right, yeah, right, exactly, right there.
Yep, yeah, you can do that. And, this is the linked file name, but also just to go, if I kind of go back to the Revit link, you can also get, the other name information as well. As you know, you can have different names. You have the file name versus the link name. So depending on what you want, like this is the worst name ever, it's link name 10, right? But you can absolutely do that. And then when you go to your filters, you can, filter by the Revit link name. And you can do multiple filters if you want to just filter out certain links and keep other links in there if you want to. So we're giving you a lot of great, information in here that can help you filter that out.
And then just one I think is nice to point out on the health check link is that when you export out, you're exporting to one tab, but then it's updating all of the other tabs in that spreadsheet based on that information. So I know there were some questions about that as well.
Yeah, this is a huge deal because I think when people, when you go to export something in BIMLink, so for example, let me just take that grids once again and just go to export. When you pick on this file, which has multiple worksheet tabs in there, one of the great things that we do is we don't overwrite the file. We just say, hey, we found a worksheet that already has the same name in there. And so we're not overwriting any of the other tabs in that file. We're just overwriting that one tab. And the beautiful thing about that is if you had a pivot table or a macro or something that referenced that tab, it will then update the information in that pivot table based on the new data that's reported in that tab. So we didn't overwrite this file. You can see here all the tabs are preserved. We just overwrote the information under the HC grids, which is right over here. So this has now the latest information from the Revit model. And so if you were interested in that automation part, what that automation can do is export all these into this one, file, just as an example, and then you can, get a summary here. Or again, you could just say, I want to build my own tables, or I want to use Power BI. No problem. Use BIMLink as the vehicle to gather the information. What you choose to do with it after that is totally up to you.
Great explanation. And someone had just typed in right now, Fred, the health check, where is it located? And I believe if you look at my answers, I did put that in the question window or panel.
Yep. So it's C program files, Ideate, and it's right in the BIMLink folder under ENUS, and it's in samples. And then when you go to health check, you'll see it right there. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. I'll hang out here for a couple more minutes and answer questions if any come through.